What if I told you that the very first thing a human brain ever falls in love with is not a toy, not a color, not a sound, but a face, and that this love begins not at birth, not at 1 month old, but inside the womb, before the baby has ever seen a single ray of light? There is something happening in the mind of every newborn that scientists have been trying to fully understand for decades. And the more they discover, the more extraordinary it becomes. Because babies do not just notice faces, they are obsessed with them, wired for them, almost magnetically pulled toward them in a way that nothing else in the entire world can replicate. And understanding why reveals something so deep about what it means to be human that it might just change the way you look at the next face you see. From the very moment a baby opens its eyes, the world is a blur. Shapes without edges, light without detail, colors without names. Everything is soft and undefined, like a painting left out in the rain. But here is the thing that stops researchers cold. Even in that blur, even in those first foggy hours of life, a newborn will turn its head toward a face, not a random pattern, not a bright object, a face. Scientists discovered this by showing newborns simple images, one that looked like a face with 2 dots for eyes and a line for a mouth, and one that had those same elements scrambled into a random pattern. The babies consistently followed the face-shaped image. They had never been taught what a face was. They had never seen one before. And yet, something in their brain already knew. That is not learning. That is something older than learning. Now here is the first twist, and it will genuinely surprise you. Researchers at the University of Lancaster projected faint, face-like images through the walls of the womb, using a light source gentle enough to be safe, and filmed the unborn babies inside. What they found was astonishing. Fetuses as young as 34 weeks turned their heads toward the face-shaped light and away from the scrambled version. Inside the womb, in the dark, before birth, before the first breath, before the first cry. The preference for faces does not begin when life begins. It begins before we even arrive. And this tells us something remarkable. The human brain comes pre-installed with a face detector, like a piece of software written into our biology, long before we have any use for it. But why faces? Why not voices, or warmth, or the smell of milk? The answer goes back millions of years, to a time when the difference between a safe face and a threatening one was the difference between survival and death. Our ancient ancestors, who could quickly and accurately read a face, friend or enemy, calm or angry, trustworthy or dangerous, lived longer, built stronger communities, and passed on those face-reading brains to their children. We are the descendants of the best face readers in history, and every baby born today carries that inheritance. A baby staring at your face is not doing something cute. It is doing something ancient and necessary. It is running a survival program that kept the human species alive for hundreds of thousands of years. Now here is where it becomes deeply emotional, because it stops being about science and starts being about love. When a baby locks eyes with a caregiver, when that gaze holds for 2, 3, 4 seconds, something extraordinary happens in the brain of both the baby and the adult. The baby's brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, the same chemical that floods the body during the most profound moments of human connection. And studies show the caregiver's brain does the same thing in response to the baby's gaze. 2 brains, 2 bodies, 2 strangers who only just met, because every baby and every parent are strangers at first, chemically synchronizing through nothing more than eye contact. This is what attachment looks like at the cellular level, and it begins with a face. Think about the last time a baby looked at you, really looked at you, with that wide, unblinking, completely unguarded gaze. Do you remember how it felt? There is a reason it feels like something. There is a reason people say a baby's eyes seem to look straight into your soul. They are not just looking at you. Their brain is scanning you, learning you, mapping the geometry of your expressions, cataloging the way your eyes crinkle when you smile, the way your mouth moves when you talk, the subtle micro-expressions that flash across your face in fractions of a second. By 3 months old, a baby has already built a mental model of the most important faces in its world, and it will recognize those faces faster and more accurately than it will recognize almost anything else for the rest of its life. But here is the second twist, and this one has a quietly heartbreaking edge to it. Researchers discovered that babies are actually better at recognizing faces across different races and even across different species in their first few months of life than adults are. A 6-month-old can tell apart individual monkey faces with the same accuracy it can tell apart human faces. By 9 months, that ability is gone. The brain, flooded with so many human faces and so few others, has begun to specialize, to prune away the pathways it does not use and strengthen the ones it does. Scientists call this perceptual narrowing, and it means that in those early months, a baby is seeing the world with a kind of open, all-embracing perception that it will slowly, inevitably lose. Every adult you have ever met was once capable of seeing more faces, more differences, more subtle distinctions. And that ability quietly slipped away before they were old enough to know it was there. There is something worth sitting with in that thought. And perhaps the deepest realization is this: from the very first moments of life, before we have language, before we have memory, before we have any understanding of the world we have arrived in, the one thing we reach for is connection. The one thing that draws us more powerfully than anything else is the face of another person. We do not arrive in this world looking for food first, or warmth first, or safety first. We arrive looking for a face, for recognition, for the wordless signal that says, "I see you and you are not alone." That is what every baby is searching for when it stares at you with those wide, wondering eyes. And maybe, just maybe, it is what all of us are still searching for. In every conversation, every relationship, every moment when we hope that someone will truly look back. If this touched something in you, share it with someone who has ever been looked at by a baby. Because some truths are too beautiful to keep to yourself. Subscribe for more mind secrets